just in case you missed it, it's the top 5 sports talkers of the day. Now, it's time for Dan Barrero's Top 5 at 5. Brought to you by Gutter Helmet of Minnesota. Never clean your gutters again. Learn more at gutterhelmetmn.com.
Do we need to get ahead of it and have a new or use an old World Cup soccer sounder? Did we ever have one I know we did for the Olympics. Did we ever do a World Cup one?
The only time I remember a specific World Cup update was the year that the men's team didn't qualify. And we did the Christian Ponder free agency update bit.
We did, didn't we?
I could probably find that one.
We did.
Because that would be legit. Before, I got to find it.
Before, it was all sarcasm and snark.
Yeah, we would hit the open.
The point was, and
then we would go this.
Yeah.
Then we'd sit here for a painfully long time.
And they deserved it.
You're right.
Now it might be different. Checking in from your father's homeland writes, second best Dan and the Fan guy, folks in Valencia are not impressed, completely unraveled, 0-0 draw. Yeah, the La Roja, the Spanish men's soccer team at the World Cup, plays to a 0-0 draw to a country I'd never heard of. You said it was off the coast of Africa?
West Africa. Yeah, off the coast of West Africa.
Cape Verde. Is that what it's called?
Yes. Yeah.
Not a good start. They now again, it's early, but the standards for tiki-taka and great soccer on the men's side certainly very, very high in España. Not an impressive start. That was earlier today. There's your bonus item for the update today.
I appreciate that. The Carolina Hurricanes are Stanley Cup champions. They blanked the Golden Knights last night in Vegas, scored a goal in each period. 3-0 was the final. They win the series 4-2. You got to love Bussy. You got to love the Bussy story. They were showing his fiance, his parents.
Yes.
He comes in. I also love Jordan Stahl gets the cup first, and he hands it to Anderson, the goalie who had to take a back seat. I thought that, we can get hyperbolic and over the top about what this means and what that means, and it's the greatest touch ever and alignment. And I thought that was pretty cool because there was some questioning. Who's he going to give it to second?
Yeah.
And he gave it to the goaltender that didn't play, that basically got taken out for Bussy. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's very, very well played. And as we talked about with Micheletti, I think the Canes gave up 13 goals the first 3 games of the series and 5 the last 3. And it did feel like in Game 5 something tripped. It, almost like Carolina remembered who they're supposed to be defensively. And from that point forward, and this was obviously not a dangerous 3-goal lead, right? It wasn't a dangerous 2-goal lead.
No.
It's not going to be a dangerous 2 or 3-goal lead if you do not allow the other team to score.
There were some great chances. Eichel had one.
Yeah, that's true.
It's hard. It's hard. And then they got the empty netter late, and then it was pandemonium.
See Micheletti for details on his reaction. He joined between 4 and 4:30 with plenty of wild conversation. That will be available podcastable after the program.
Twins took 2 out of 3 from the St. Louis Cardinals over the weekend at Target Field. That's what we do. And now we hit the road.
Is it what we do?
I don't know. I felt like Lori Fisher right there.
It is a Larry, but yeah. I am hearing a little bit like, it's amazing that, they keep battling.
Yep.
We're back to that nonsense. They battle. They don't get blown out on a regular basis, so apparently that's enough to please everybody.
And we are in Arlington now, taking on the Texas Rangers starting tonight. The pitcher that does not even have a headshot on ESPN.com still doesn't. He pitched last week. We talked about him. Mike Paredes.
Disrespectful.
Well, get him a picture.
You think so?
Somebody at the Twins, because they haven't taken one of them yet. Help the guy out. People are going on ESPN.com. They want to learn more about our pitcher tonight.
Very disrespectful.
I don't even know what he looks like. But that's what's happening tonight, 7:05. Speaking of 7:05, or at least right around 7, your Minnesota Lynx are back in action. They're taking on one of the expansion teams, the Portland Fire. They lost in a barn burner, I guess. I did not see much of it because I was watching the NBA Finals on Saturday night.
Here's how committed I was to the Lynx bid. I'm being totally serious.
I believe you.
Even though, because it was one of those deals where one of them, the Lynx game's on a stream, and obviously the NBA Finals are on ABC. And I hate trying to do the remote magic for that. So here's what I ultimately did. I watched all of the second half of Lynx Vegas. knowing I was going to miss. In fact, I think it meant I missed the entire first half of the Spurs and the Knicks, and I didn't look back. And it was a terrific comeback. The Lynx found themselves basically down 7-9 a lot of the second half. They charge late. They go ahead, but they can't close the deal. And Miles was I think it was her career high offensively. Did she finish? Was it 29? I don't remember the number she had, but points, it was her top number of her young career. I did think where I give Vegas credit is she wasn't the assist demon that we're used to, and it looked to me like where Vegas was smart is they cut off some of the passing lanes that she is quite adept at taking advantage of. And last shot she took with a chance to win it, I didn't love because they were down 1, and she kind of took a step back 3. She did have space. I wanted her to go into the basket on that one, which she had done on who's the Vegas tall pivot player who's
Asia
the player.
Wilson.
Yeah, Asia Wilson, best player could argue in the game up front. Twice drove right at her. First time with a right-hand layup. Second time goes to the other side of the basket and puts it in on a bank with the left hand and gets fouled on it. She was exemplary. But the last shot she couldn't get. Great game. Great feeling that these teams might end up playing again. It was very good theater. And I still had plenty of time to see the Spurs do what they're supposed to do, which is give the game away.
29 points, 1 assist for Olivia Miles on Saturday night.
That was the issue. The passing game was more limited than we are accustomed to.
You can hear that game, by the way, tonight against the Portland Fire right here on the Fan, following Fan on Demand on the air. Lynx and Portland tonight. Fan has your chance to win $2,500. Enter the keyword TRIP at KFAN.com. Part of our $250,000 cash contest this summer. America turns 250. Keyword
that right?
TRIP at KFAN.com.
Let's get to some sound. Eventually, we may leave the toy department for some A-section stuff. That might not be till 6. We got Jonny Athletic coming up at the bottom of the hour. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Barrero.
Might have it done as before we wrap things up at 6:30 tonight. I'm working on that, but it's a pretty good prospect. I think it's a pretty good candidate for best of. On this date, again, this would probably be the opposite of Calendar of Calamity entrant. This is the 15th of June, correct?
It is.
On this date, in 1994. Playoffs still going on, it appears.
Had to be the finals.
Had to be the NBA Finals.
The 17th, 94 was the finals.
And you're going to hear a bit of sound from a familiar voice, that of Bob Costas, who is anchoring pregame, I'm assuming, coverage, right, at the time for NBC. And he's kind of doing a roundup of some NBA-related news, perhaps outside the NBA Finals. A fairly momentous occasion if you were a little Gaardsy. June 15, 1994. A confirmation of what you probably already knew, but is always, I think, bracing and helpful to hear from a voice of authority like Bob Costas. And then you're going to also hear some sound that he passes to from the commissioner of the NBA, the late, great David Stern.
The recent sale of the Minnesota Timberwolves to a group in New Orleans has been unanimously rejected by the NBA's relocation committee. NBA Commissioner David Stern discussed it before tonight's game.
That committee has unanimously recommended that the Board of Governors disapprove the application to sell the Minnesota Timberwolves to Top Rank of Louisiana. We're in the process of scheduling a board meeting, a Board of Governors meeting at which the recommendation of the committee will be acted upon.
The Timberwolves, a team that's enjoyed tremendous fan support from the outset, but they have financial problems. Their ownership does, especially with the financing of the arena. New Orleans group came along with a huge offer, but the NBA would like the stability of finding a buyer in Minnesota to keep the franchise there. Stern also said that the pressure of making a schedule precludes a move to New Orleans for the 94-95 season. Additionally, the league has filed a lawsuit to reaffirm its right to control its franchises.
It's the bumper to bumper seal of approval.
I know. There was a lot of bad basketball after that where I'm sure you were saying good riddance. Go to New Orleans. Let's see if we can get an expansion franchise and start over.
We'll try again next round.
But eventually, it's kind of gotten there. It's gotten to a better place. Now it's in a pivotal place maybe, because are we at a fork in the road where we're either going to get better or there's a decent chance we're going to get worse? Yeah, there's a lot of critical stuff going on this offseason, but I can remember that like it was yesterday. The 1994 finals, I don't remember who played, because I'm trying to figure out if I wrote off of...
That was Knicks Rockets.
I think I was there for that.
And then 2 days later was the OJ chase.
Oh, yeah, I was definitely there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly
so
it.
it was Knicks Rockets.
So I'm sure I was at that press conference. So a momentous occasion where history was changed, because I do think, there's a tendency to believe that owners will just take the money or whatever, and they say, the Wolves, they weren't, maybe they were supported okay, but you don't have strong owners there. We'll let them go. The fact that the league really spearheaded by Stern, that was a Stern operation. That was a Stern decision. But it's one that I think should always endear the former NBA commissioner to Wolves fans. That you had him, for various reasons, in your corner. We don't talk about anything, the good or the bad, that's happened afterwards, if that team had been allowed to go to New Orleans, and I think that was a top rank organizational thing. Does Spike Lee really need a ring?
Is he getting one?
No. Well, there's a lot of stuff being written about. A lot of Knicks fans are clamoring, given how long his allegiance goes to the organization, should get a ring. Come on. Again, he's Spike Lee, man. If you're going to go down that road, find somebody who's never on TV, who's been going to games for 75 years, never gets interviewed, nobody even knows who he or she is. Get them a ring. I'd rather, and if you're Spike, to me, that's what you do. I'm going to find somebody. Give me the ring. I'm going to give it to that person.
Interesting. Does
he not have enough notoriety? And we get it. He's been loyal. I'm not doubting how legitimate a fan he is. I just don't like identifying the biggest name who gets every advantage accorded a celebrity, which is fine. It's not unprecedented. Why does he have to get a ring?
Well, it's funny because Stephen A., another famous Knicks fan,
yes,
said like a week ago he doesn't want a ring. And the reaction was, well, yeah, why would you get one? You're not on the team. I actually agree with you. You're a fan. You're not part of management. There was a great video Saturday night, though, of Spike going through Brooklyn, and somebody tweeted it out. He was like standing through the car that he was being driven in.
I saw that.
Going through the crowd. Somebody said he's parading like the Pope.
I know.
Which is so good. I mean, by the way, I don't blame him for that. That's a fun moment. He's with the people and everybody's there, and the streets of New York have been awesome. No, Spike does not need a ring.
Some of the streets have been awesome.
Has there been some issues?
There have been some violence, yeah. There's been some trouble. Not on that occasion. And then some chumbalone through, was it
stuff at Wemby?
Eggs at Wemby?
Yeah, that's dumb.
What are we doing? I mean, we know what we're doing. We understand that's not the majority, but there's that's where we are as a market, still untouched. If you go back to the 87, and I think even the 91, but definitely the 87 World Series celebration, there was not a hair out of place downtown after we wrapped up winning Game 7. Not a hair. We were responsible in our emotion. We got emotional, but we didn't destroy anything. Now, I think I'm trying to remember if 91 it got rougher, and then, of course, there was the infamous.
Get off me!
That was after the Golden Gopher men's hockey team lost, right?
No, I think that was after they won.
Oh, I thought they had lost.
The epic game against North Dakota, I think.
Okay.
I don't think they lost.
Whatever it was.
They had the other ones when they won the title here.
It was messy.
Yeah.
And that was the get off me moment. And I was thinking about that because somebody made viral. There was a reporter, I don't know if it was one of the local stations in New York, maybe it was even ESPN, trying to do a live interview in the streets. And he basically had to go through the same thing that our guy did way back then when Fox 9 went to that coverage for several hours because we called it then the Dinkytown riots, which was a little bit of an exaggeration compared to some stuff that came after. You know, that was a more innocent time in which we were living. But then it was I think it was referred to as the Dinkytown riots, correct? But yes. I thought that was after a loss.
It may have been. We've had a couple of them. The Dinkytown hockey riots became a thing like a couple of different times in different eras.
Yeah, that's probably
a decade or so. You did write about the New Orleans thing from New York.
Oh, I did.
I just pulled up. Yeah, said the Texans had a lot of swagger. You wrote, and then it was immediately doused because of the ruling.
Yeah, funny. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? Yeah,
Stern never blinked. When the Wolves opened the 94-95 season in Minnesota, he should get the game ball.
You should.
That was your walk-off.
I tried to get in this. I mean, look, Ed Stern, he could be, we had him on over the years a couple of times, and he could be difficult and argumentative. And, you know, he's as pompous as any of the commissioners. There's no question about that. But if I were a Wolves fan, I don't give a damn about that. He took care of this market.
Yep.
And I don't think he had to. I really don't. I think it would have been easy to say, well, maybe we don't love the group, but we can make it work. And they got arena problems here anyway, whatever. For whatever reason that he stood up, he did. And it's what the fans did deserve because attendance was not the issue. It was absolutely, that was giving up way too soon on a franchise that I think has more than once since then proven this is a very good professional basketball market.
That arena that you heard Bob Costas talking about is the one they still play in, Target Center.
Yeah,
well, all the way back, and they're trying to fix that.
Anything to do about that?
And a year later, out of Farragut Academy High School, they drafted Kevin Garnett.
Did they?
In 1995.
5th pick overall?
Number 5.
Number 5.
I remember where I was that day, too.
Yeah, I think I said that they should draft, who was the big man out of UCLA? Was it Bannon? Not big man, but
Ed O'Bannon?
Ed O'Bannon. I think I said draft Ed O'Bannon.
Man. He was a great college player.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
The translation was awful. I don't know if I actually declared that he should be the guy, but I think I did.
Well, how do you know who Kevin Garnett is?
We knew nothing about Garnett.
It's totally different. I mean, 8 years later, LeBron's on ESPN as a high schooler.
I mean,
Kevin changed that whole thing.
Unprecedented at that point. You go, are you really going to wait 8 years for a kid who's 12 and weighs 142 pounds to become what? We didn't know that he was actually much further along than that. All right, Jonny Athletic is coming up next. I'm going to try to do less NBA Finals, more on the state of the Wolves, trade rumors, other possibilities, and we'll mix and match with him if you have questions or comments. 64686. That is the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Done as yet to come as well. Stay tuned.
Bumper to Bumper with Dan Barrera.
It's time for Jonny Athletic. Jonny Athletic. Jonny Athletic. And he's on with Dan Barrera right now.
I'm going to give you, Gaardsy, and our next guest, Jonny Athletic, another reason to sort of get back to the theme of this show today, why you shouldn't have to apologize for, it shouldn't be illegal to. Show some measure of interest and curiosity in the World Cup that just began a few days ago. And Jonny will relate to this on a very specific basis, I would say, on a, well, hold on. You already put him on. All right. I'm sorry. I don't even know what to do at this point. Can you try to? Because I did. There we go. My computer is now working in here. Jonny is a story guy. Jonny has grown in this business as a guy who likes to tell stories. And this one's irresistible, I think, to me. I bet you it would be to you. I know it would be to Gaardsy and a lot of folks out there. So Spain is considered the best of the best. You just heard the iHeart update on they played to a 0-0 draw with a country I'd never heard of until today, Cape Verde, off of the coast of Africa, Johnny. And the story that is developed is basically Cape Verde hardly ever possessed the ball, but their goaltender played out of his mind. And the backstory on him, his name is Josimar Dias, but his nickname is Vocinha, Granny, in Portuguese, because he's 40 years old. He's basically twice as old as many of the players he's competing against, and he was the story today in preserving the 0-0 tie. Let me read you a couple sentences from a breathless Yahoo report, Johnny, that I think even you will relate to. You could sum up Vocinha's brilliance and Spain's frustration in one 2-shot, 5-second sequence late in the first half. In one of their many attacks, Spain had Vocinha surrounded, and the inevitable appeared nigh. Spain's Marc Cusarella got behind the Cape Verde defense, headed a ball back to Ferran Torres, who had a clear shot on the goal. But Vocinha dove straight at the ball, and that was enough to alter Torres' shot so that it sprang high off the crossbar. Oh, writes the writer for Yahoo Sports, we're not done yet. While the ball was in the air and caroming back into the field of play, Vocinha was on the ground facing the wrong way with a teammate on top of him. Yet somehow he managed to leap to his feet, flip around into position, and tip a screamer from Mikel Oyarzabal just over the top of the crossbar. And yes, he did this in all of 5 seconds. Now tell me, in all seriousness, why I don't think you have to love soccer at all to say, that's a hell of a story. Why not at least give it a chance?
Incredible, Dan. Like, just put me in the game. I want to get a crack at that one because I feel like I could write it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you could.
I'm already thinking about where did he come from? What did his parents do? Like, all of the things that you can kind of research to figure out what keeps this guy driving at 40 years old. Like, how, what has been instilled in him, and what does he mean to the people and everyone back there? That is a legendary performance.
Yes.
Yeah, like, I am not one of those people who hangs on every minute of play at the World Cup. It's not my thing. But like you said, I love a good story. I would read that. I would write it. I would do anything I could to be around it. That's amazing.
If all you care about is social media, more surfacey stuff, according to the Wall Street Journal, in the space of 2 hours since performing this series of miracles against Spain, he picked up more than 1.5 million followers on Instagram. 1.5 million followers.
Now he's an influencer
on Insta in 2 hours. Yeah, you can't make it up. So there you have it.
It's incredible. And Dan, the best part is like, who cares what happens the rest of the tournament for Cape Verde? Like,
exactly.
That moment will live on forever. He will never pay for a drink or a meal back home again, I would imagine. I mean, that's just that is an iconic, legendary performance, and even it could. When this whole tournament is done, we may look back on that performance and say that was one of the indelible things of this whole tournament.
Yeah, it sounds like a hell of a story today. Although they're not looking at it as a cute story in Spain right now.
La Roja.
La Roja. Yeah, Tiki Taka, man. Rubio, I think Rubio ripped the team via X, too. He's so bitter. No, that's not Ricky's style.
I'm going to text him right after this.
You should text him, say, what the hell happened? He might have the backstory on the 40-year-old. All right. Enjoy. Let's. I want to do less NBA Finals, although eventually we may get to a couple things on that because we've had a lot. We've had Mitch on today. We had Double T. And I do want to sort of center more on getting us in prime shape for now that the finals are behind us, the next step for the Wolves, which is, we're coming up on the draft, and the assumption is if there's going to be movement, there's a good chance that it would be right, around the draft. The next step for this team, right, because now the finals are done. So now it's everybody else saying, all right, what can we do to improve ourselves to get us to that better place, I guess you could say. So is there anything, I mean, we've certainly talked about some of the people who might be available and might not be. I want to start with Giannis because I think the impression I had was maybe we were less in this than we were at the trade deadline a year ago. And then your outfit, the Athletic, had a piece, I think it was a double byline, including Sam Amick, indicating that the Wolves might well be in that conversation. Where are you on all this? I mean, I know you follow this stuff pretty closely. Do you think we are back in that if we were ever out of it, or do you think that's still, all right, probably a long shot, even if the Wolves might be in the conversation?
Yeah, I would say this, and talking to people within the organization and around the league about the Giannis marketplace, and I do think, Dan, that it was accurate maybe 2 weeks ago that the Wolves were really like, look, this is a deal that would be too difficult for us to pull off with what Milwaukee wants, with everything that's involved in it, with what it would take, how it would liquidate, our depth, all of those things. And the only thing that I think has changed somewhat over this, maybe the last 10 days or so, is that I think that Milwaukee is largely underwhelmed by their options on the table right now. And so that means Miami, from all kind of reporting that we've seen so far, seems to be kind of at the front of the line for Giannis because they've been the most aggressive. They don't have a whole lot to offer, in my estimation, Dan. I mean, they have Tyler Hero and some picks and a few other things, some nice, Jaquez, some nice young players, but certainly nothing that's moving the needle. And so the reporting at The Athletic is more of that Milwaukee is taking a second go around with other teams just to canvass one more time to see if there is a deal that they like more. And so I believe that the asking price for Giannis from the Minnesota Timberwolves is lower now than it was in February when they were trying to get a deal done. But I still think it's a long shot that something would get done for Giannis. It seems like Boston is trying to maneuver back into it. Maybe the Wolves could get in, Dan, as a third team, and they get something from one of the other teams. But I would still, at this point, be very surprised if Giannis Antetokounmpo ends up a Timberwolf. But the door is a little bit more open than it was maybe earlier this summer.
To that extent, it sounds like what you're saying is some of the outlandish propositions offered up about how much the Wolves would have to give up, maybe they wouldn't have to give up quite as much simply because none of the other deals are quite as awe-inspiring as the Bucks might have hoped. Yeah,
exactly, Dan. And Sam and Eric reported this, and I have no reason to doubt it. I believe it that the Wolves have made clear that Jaden McDaniels and Johan Berenger are off the table. And you'd say, and there'll be skeptics that say, you're going to pull Johan and Berenger off the table for Giannis Antetokounmpo. But the one of the main concerns that the Timberwolves have about potentially trading for Giannis is, would you have to liquidate almost all of your young depth to make that happen? And then all of a sudden you have Ant and Giannis, and then you have nothing else really around, and that really shortens the shelf life of your team. And so I do think that Berenger and McDaniels are pretty much off of the table here, and so that makes it harder for the Bucks to say yes to it. But yeah, I think we'd seen suggestions of Jaden and Nas and Berenger and Shannon and
a couple of picks,
and that's just not going to happen. That's just unrealistic for the Wolves' point of view. And the Wolves can say, hey, okay, go take that poo-poo platter from Miami and let me know how you feel about it.
You retweeted a comment from Dan Wokey. If there's a lesson to take from these NBA Finals, it's that you don't build a team that looks like the Spurs, the Thunder, or the Knicks. You can't do it. You can build the best possible team around your best players and hope that you create something good enough. What did you like about that tweet, and what does it mean as it pertains to the Wolves?
Yeah, there are two things I liked about it, Dan. First of all, walking away from that finals and looking how it all transpired, I understand Timberwolves fans who are looking at their roster and saying, oh, man, how are we going to compete with OKC and San Antonio and even New York in the East, who just beat the Spurs, who kind of cleaned our clocks in round two. There's generally, you can say, well, there's hopelessness that sets in at this time of year. But when you look at New York specifically, there was hopelessness in New York earlier this season, even in the middle of round one against Atlanta when they lost the game, and it was just like, oh man, they do not look good here. This is going to end, and they're going to have to trade Cat, and maybe they're going after Giannis. And instead, they made some tweaks and tinkering around how their schemes and what they did, and everything came together, and they stayed healthy, and they are champions now. And no one in the middle of this season could say for sure, oh yeah, the Knicks are going to be champions. They won 53 games. They didn't win 62. They won 53, which is a good record, but not an amazing one. And so for Wolves fans, it can come together differently if you give it time. Now, to Dan's other point about that tweet, what I like is I don't necessarily think it has to be Giannis. It has to be Kyrie. It could be a move here or there that just makes the puzzle pieces around Anthony Edwards click in place better. And so if you can do that and just make this whole kind of starting five in the top 8 or 9 guys maybe make a little bit more sense, then you could go on a run. It's that possible. And so I just think that the angst and the need for aggression, while understandable, is maybe a little misplaced here, and they may not be quite as far away as some people believe that they are, because they have a great player in Ant, and now they just have to find maybe a few more supplementary pieces that fit around him better than the ones that are currently here.
To your point, in terms of the cliched pieces fitting together, the Knicks, to me, are a great example of that, because if you build it largely around Brunson, which it's still built around him, Towns has become a big factor, but it's Brunson's team. So if you look at the way they're constructed, you say, all right, well, realistically, if this is going to work, our other guard can't be a guy who demands the ball a lot. Frankly, our forwards must be guys who find ways to score without constantly demanding the ball. Or, we use Cat the way they ultimately did, as almost a point center, and then it's just about movement, and those players can get some baskets that way. But that's how you piece it together. It's almost like you have to say, what does Brunson need? He probably also needs a good defender around him, or a couple good defenders around him. So then it's back to, what does Anthony Edwards need? How do we get the most out of him, accentuate his strengths, and minimize some of his weaknesses, right? That's the fit that you're talking about. That's when it's about pieces together, not necessarily whether you're adding another superstar.
Yeah, exactly, Dan. And then you look at what worked for the Knicks that didn't work for the Wolves. One is, of course, they were healthy, not having Dante, not having a fully healthy Ant and Io was, I think, a big factor in that series. But the other thing that was a big factor that the Knicks had that the Wolves did not is they had 5 guys who could really space the floor, really move the ball, and move without the ball. And so I think when you are looking to maximize Ant, adding more shooting and spacing and playmaking around him would help that a lot.
Yep.
And so that you look at Julius, you look at Rudy, and some way, somehow, it doesn't mean you have to move both of them, but it does kind of point to adding a more offensive shooting element to at least one of those two positions to give Ant some more space so they can't just load up on him and double him as soon as he crosses the half-court line, because they couldn't do that with Brunson, because Bridges and Anunoby and Towns and even Hart could hurt them in a much greater degree than Rudy and Randall could do for the Timberwolves. And so I think that's got to be the focus here in this offseason as they go into deal-making time here.
Is it possible that Julius Randle is untradeable?
I don't think he's untradeable, Dan, but I do think it is possible that if they want to make a deal, you attach a first-round pick to Julius.
Right.
I think you could find takers for him. But what they need to do is they need to get something back for him. They can't just give him away. And so I think it is possible for them to find a dance partner where they take on someone back in return who maybe isn't going to light up the merch tent with jerseys of I've got to get this player because I'm so excited about him. But it could bring back someone who has his own faults, but maybe his faults are a little bit better covered up by the Wolves, and maybe his strengths help cover up some of the Wolves' faults better. So I don't think he's unmovable. I think De'Aaron Fox might be close to unmovable, if you want to look at that. But I think Julius is, just with where his contract is, with how productive he is, I think you could find takers, but they have to be careful about finding the right piece to come back. They cannot just give him away, I don't believe.
What is we've talked a lot about Randall, not so much about Rudy. Mm-hmm. What is your Rudy vibe? In other words, do you think, obviously Conley values him. That's why he went out and got him.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming he still values him. But you got to be one step ahead rather than one step behind. So do you get the sense that there's a strong possibility that they move on him in this offseason as well?
I don't know if I'd say strong, Dan, but I think it's something that they have to at least look at. In a similar sense, Dan, they're kind of in the spot where they were when they moved Cat a couple of years ago. Do I think they wanted to move Cat right then and there as like the piece to go? No, I don't. I think that the problem that they ran into was that Cat had the most value on the market. And so they could get Dante DiVincenzo and Randall and a first-round pick for Cat. They could not have gotten that kind of a return for Rudy at that time, at that particular time. He was coming off the Dallas series. It wasn't great for him there, and so there was a lot of questions about him. Rudy's been really good. He had a really good season. Let's not forget how great he was against Jokic in round one. They're not in round two without Rudy Gobert. But this could also be a situation, Dan, where you look at it and say, maybe Rudy has more value on the open market than Julius Randle does right now because Rudy's coming off first-team all-defense. You can look at what he did against Jokic, and there could be teams that really need a center that say, you know what, we're gonna give you more for Rudy than we would for Julius, and maybe that would cause the Wolves to think long and hard about, okay, do we just take back the better return for Rudy than you do for Julius? I think that could be a situation that they find themselves in here, going forward. And so they'd rather keep Rudy, but if there's just a deal that's much more overwhelming than there was one for Julius, I think you got to think about it.
Behind the scenes, do you get the sense that they obviously covet the future of Berenger, but the question is whether they think it's possible he could make a huge jump to, at the very least, the rotation. Like, I'm talking about not 3 or 4 minutes here or there, but a rotation player this year, or they still view him as a guy that basically needs to sit another year before you can count on anything from him.
Yeah, so I believe, Dan, that the way they look at it, like you said, I think you hit the nail on the head, is that they are sky high on his long-term potential. They absolutely love where they believe he can be in 3 or 4 years. But they also do believe that for him to take that step and get to that place, he has to play next year. He's got to have, 12 minutes a game, some sort of regular role in the rotation for him to take the next steps. I had him on my podcast at the Target Center just last week as part of the merch or the uniform unveil, and I asked Johan, I said, what was the hardest part about your rookie season? He said, sitting on the bench and watching. He clearly did not like that. I understood why they did it, but I think that they have to make a move in the front court with one of those 3 guys, Naz, Julius, or Jaden, because they have to create room for Johan Berenger, and they have to take sort of the option away from Chris Finch as well. It's like, look, coach, you got to play him. Like, if it means we lose a few more games early on in the regular season, that's just going to have to be the case. You have to play Johan Berenger. And so I think they're going to try to make steps to create a spot for him to play, because another year on the bench that way is not going to help him develop into what they believe can be a very good starting front court player over the next several years.
All right, last item for today. Jonny Athletic joining us this afternoon. One of the reasons I have found the finals so fascinating this year is how weird they've been in a lot of ways. Example, Karl Anthony Towns hailed as his coming out party to an extent when it comes to playing a different way, showing an interest in making winning plays, less concerned with how many points, if he ended up with 30 points after during a given game. His assist numbers basically quadrupled what he did a year ago. So much of what they did ran through this run ran through him. And yet, what are the odds that the second best player, second most important player, obviously, on this team, Towns for the Knicks, could be virtually invisible in the fourth quarter of, I think, at least the last 3 games of a series the Knicks still won in 5? You'd say, if you're doing the odds on that, well, that's impossible. The Knicks can't possibly win. They can't win the series at all if they get so little offensively from Cat. Now, some of that was foul trouble, but it just, in so many ways, this series, I think, almost defies explanation.
It does, Dan. It's a great point. And when you look at, I do think it does overlook a little bit of what he brought defensively.
No question.
In the series.
Yes, 100%.
Because if you look at his plus minus, I think he had the highest plus minus throughout a playoff run ever.
Yes.
Plus 248. And so a lot of what he was doing was on the defensive end. And I think that speaks highly to his character to be able to go through. I think there was, 3 of the 5 games he didn't score a point in the fourth quarter of that. And he just changed the way that he approached it and just lock in defensively, make things hard on Wembanyama, and that allowed them to get back into games and close deficits in a major way. But, kind of speaking to kind of what we started this conversation with, the Knicks just did a good job of doing whatever it took.
That's right.
And so some nights it was Brunson, some nights it was OG Anunoby, some nights it was Bridges. They just, whoever had the hot hand, no one got their feelings hurt or anything.
Right. Yeah.
They just did whatever it took to win, and that's what made that such a likable team
100%.
From start to finish.
There's no question about that. A texter wants to know, did Berenger, however you pronounce it, did he steal Kyler Murray's material about not getting enough reps, or did Murray steal Berenger's material there? It's a very tough question. I don't know which came first.
It is a tough question. I don't know if they spent a lot of time hanging out. Perhaps Kyler is a European aficionado and wants to kind of spend some time with him. But I do believe that Kyler said what he said before Berenger said what he said. Okay. And so Kyler was out front, at least publicly. Yeah. But maybe those two have met at the French Meadow Cafe in Uptown and are kind of plotting their subtle, PR kind of messaging together. That I cannot rule that out at this point.
100%. Jonny, we appreciate you as always, and we will chat soon. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dan.
RBC Wealth Management, the excellent sponsor of the Jonny Athletic segments. Generally speaking, on a Monday, sometimes a little earlier in the show, sometimes a little bit later. We've got a couple of A-section items to examine and a done-as in our final half hour today. Perhaps even a couple more World Cup nuggets. Stay tuned. Tim Miller from the Bulwark. Quote, Michelle Obama is a man shouted on the White House lawn in a ring sponsored by Bud Light, only available on Larry Ellison's Paramount Plus. What a way to celebrate America's 250 and the twilight of liberal democracy. Response from Michael Weiss. JFK once invited to dinner 49 Nobel laureates: Robert Frost, William Styron, Ernest Hemingway, James Baldwin, Catherine Ann Porter, John Dos Passos, James Farrell, and Lionel and Diana Trilling, and others. His line on the occasion became famous. I think this is the most extraordinary collection of talent, of human knowledge that has ever been gathered together at the White House, with the possible exception of when Thomas Jefferson dined alone, quote, unquote. Some of you were alive when that happened. Really? That's where we're at, huh? Okay. Laugh your ass off. Revel in. We got all the sensitive types going. Just having fun. Just messing around with it. Just having a good time. That's what we're reduced to. That's the low comedy we're reduced to. Some idiot in the ring. And boy, one last thing. Michelle Obama's a man. What are we doing? Well, I know what we're doing about Iran. Let me see if I can give you a couple updates there regarding the New Deal. This line got my attention. You're familiar with the name Garry Kasparov, former chess giant?
Yeah. Only because we bring him up.
Very much anti-Putin guy, Putin agitator, etc. He linked to a tweet labeled "aged like milk in the Strait of Hormuz, son." This was Donald J. Trump not that long ago. There will be no deal with Iran except unconditional surrender. After that, and the selection of a great and acceptable leaders, we and many of our wonderful and very brave allies and partners will work tirelessly to bring Iran back from the brink of destruction. To which Kasparov writes, Trump said he demanded unconditional surrender. We just didn't know he meant America's. How is this a good deal? CBS saying that the Iranians are saying they're going to have access to a $300 billion reconstruction fund. And J.D. Vance confirmed it. Vice President of the United States. By the way, that's the same J.D. Vance who said, let me find it, Iran threatened to launch a large number of missiles at the Israelis during the final hours of negotiations. Even though Pete Hegseth declared in early April that Iran's ballistic missile program was functionally destroyed and that Iran had no ability to replenish its offensive or defensive capabilities. As our guy Gerald Posner points out, someone's math does not quite add up. And then there's a noted righty who says $300 billion to Iran under any circumstances is a disaster, like offering the Marshall Plan to rebuild Germany while the Nazis were still in power. How? In all seriousness, I'll ask the sharks out there, how in the hell can this be viewed as anything resembling unconditional surrender and victory for the United States of America? This looks like an utter and complete capitulation and disaster, in large measure because it sounds like the president's just bored with it. He's tired of it. He's got other things he wants to move on to at this point. Oh, do you want another? I'll give you one other. Let's make it a two done as Monday here on the Fan. This is the end. And this will also bring us back, Gaardsy, to Knicks winning the World Championship. There's a website or a Twitter handle called Truth Seeker that has 6,000 followers and change. I'm just going to read it.
All right, I'm listening.
The New York Knicks star Jalen Brunson married a Jewish woman in 2023.
I did see this one.
And then 3 years later wins a rigged NBA championship. All sports are rigged and controlled by certain groups. Now, excuse me? Then there have been a number of Jewish individuals who said, damn it.
Jewish athletes, yeah.
Yeah, I wish I'd have gotten in on this.
Former Viking Jeff Schwartz, one of them. Yep.
That was the one I saw.
Yes.
You're exactly right.
Yep.
I think that's also done as worthy. And again, I don't know anything about Truth Seeker, do you?
No. No.
I don't have any idea, and I don't know if that's
was she responsible for firing Tibbs? Did she help fire Tibbs? Is that part of the plot?
That might be part of the plot. I don't know. It's a very, very good, a very, very good question. So there you have it. In any case, let's do this. Let's pause. I got a couple of other items to wrap up the show with. I'll also remind you.
Those were just from the weekend, too, by the way, right?
That's true.
That's the best
part. All the weekend, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot more.
If you checked out over the weekend, here's what you missed.
Which is a lot. And nothing at all. We'll come back and wrap up the program.
By American Pressure, commercial-grade pressure washer since 1975.
It's the Bumper to Bumper Show Wrap.
Thank you to so many today. An outstanding array of guests that included Trent Tucker at 3:30 talking about what it feels like to celebrate as a former New York Knickerbocker the Knicks' success. Also, Mitch Lawrence at 4:30. In between, a lot of hockey conversation with Pat Micheletti, who is kind of going against the grain about the notion that we've got to get another center. He thinks, in his pecking order, another skilled defenseman might be more important. We'll see what Louis has to say about that tomorrow when he joins us in studio. We think in studio, and among our guests with him, Phil Esposito is scheduled to join. Louis at 3:30, Espo at 4. Also want to thank Jonny Athletic, who joined us today at 5:30. 763 guy writes, Chris Hine in a recent strip piece was the rare local media voice to acknowledge that the Gobert trade, much more than the overblown second apron, basically made the Towns trade necessary. 4 years later, the Wolves are trying to retool with few realistic trade options. Then an aging Gobert and the overrated major return piece in the Towns deal, Randall. They took their big swing, hit a run-scoring double, now have no big bats remaining for their next key at bat. I would say the Gobert trade, again, you can't, I don't think, look at it in the vacuum of that caused us to take away our flexibility, and in a sense, because of that contract, in addition to the other contracts on this team, and with Cat, obviously, meant that you were stuck in the second apron. The implication seems to be if you don't make the Gobert trade, you have more flexibility and you're not as likely to be in the apron. What you can't leave out of that equation, though, is what the Gobert trade did to transform the team defensively in a way that it had never played defensively, except maybe for 1 year in the past. And that can't be left out. Now, does that mean, if you go back on it and say, to Johnny's point, when one of them, when there had to be a trade made, even if you could get less in return for Rudy, might you have been better off sticking with Cat, continuing to grow with him, and accept less of a bounty in return and find some other way to build? That's the fair question. It's what you were talking about earlier in the show. I think it's unanswerable to a certain extent, but you can't leave out, and you can't even leave out, frankly, that with Randall a year ago, they got to the conference finals.
Right.
They didn't win it.
Right.
They didn't look good, and I'm not here to defend Randall at this point, but you can't conveniently leave that out. The two teams were in the same place. I'll also add, and maybe we spend some more time on this tomorrow, I don't think Cat's the same player. Now, you're back to, could he have become that player here? And that's a fair question. But let's not rewrite history. Cat, we all knew was the best player in the deal.
Said it the day of.
There were concerns about the way he played in the postseason. There just flat out were, and I don't want to hear people pretend that there wasn't that muttering from very astute basketball minds. It's easy to say now, when you see what Towns did this year, to say, it's a no-brainer. But I don't think the basketball community lost its mind then when Towns was traded, because there was some concern about the foul trouble. There was some concern about, the playoffs, it just seems like he's gone for significant stretches. He was viewed as a guy who was good but frustrating. So, again, if we're going to be fair to all parties, that has to be factored into the conversation.
He played really poorly in the Dallas series.
He did.
After playing pretty well in the Denver series, especially Game 7, where he saved them in the first half when nothing was going. The other thing that I don't think people are paying enough attention to, and I'll just keep screaming it, Jalen Brunson is $100 million short of the money he should be making.
That's right.
Which is like $25 million a year.
Who else has done that?
I don't know if anybody has, which matters, because then they don't need Cat to be the Supermax guy all the time. They have room for OG Anunoby. Pretty important player, right? The rest of the pieces, obviously, I don't have the salaries right in front of me, but we've looked at it.
It changed everything for them.
Like Bridges makes good money.
Yes.
Like Brunson doing that a couple of years ago allowed them the flexibility, almost to the dollar, to bring in the Karl Anthony Towns contract and give them what they needed there. Like, if other teams want to do that, then we don't have, or other players, then we don't have to worry about the second apron as much, because the Wolves aren't the only one worried about it right now. There's other teams that are about. Oklahoma City's about to hit decisions on what are we going to do? How are we going to keep all these guys?
Correct.
So we'll see what they do.
Did Doc Rivers say something controversial today with who's Mad? With Mad Dog? Because I think an Ain't Gal says she thinks I would enjoy what Doc had to say. We'll have to look that up for tomorrow. I don't know. Have you seen anything in the news about it?
Mad Dog's on about the same time we are.
And by the way, we will continue to be, despite some pushback, your World Cup leader. We're not backing down. I refuse to back down on it. Every day there'll be a component of World Cup coverage as we move ever closer to USA Australia, which will be taking place during our show, correct?
Yes.
On Friday.
2 o'clock.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we will talk to you tomorrow at 3.
The Fan.